So, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, bad news to pass on today, and it's a sad announcement for a lot of fans of the 1950s and 60s Disney era. The great Tommy Kirk, one of the best youth actors that Disney had in its stable back in the day, has passed away at the age of 79. And not too many particulars about his death. I think it probably natural causes. The age was there, as you like to say. But Tommy Kirk, when I was growing up, he was a big factor of our lives because a lot of these movies were shown on The Wonderful World of Disney on CBC, which was the national network in Canada, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. And a lot of Disney's movies were brought in as part of the Scholastic, or what they call the school film series, where we were given, G-rated movies as treats. He was in a plethora of big hits. Best known his performances, of course, Old Yeller, still a classic of the genre, The Shaggy Dog, Swiss Family Robinson, very underrated in that movie, and The Misadventures of Merlin Jones. He was also in a whole bunch of beach party films of the mid-1960s, mostly with former Disney stablemate Annette Funicello. Now, born in the beautiful community of Louisville, he was one of 4 sons. His father was a mechanic who worked for the highway department. His mother was a legal secretary. Looking for better job opportunities, they moved to Downey in LA County, California when Kirk was 15 months of age. Now, in 1954, Kirk accompanied his elder brother Joe to an audition for a production of Eugene O'Neill's Wilderness at the Pasadena Playhouse in Pasadena. Now, Joe was starstruck, says Kirk. Joe was not cast, losing out to Bobby Driscoll, which was another teen actor at the time, but Tommy was, and he made his stage debut opposite Will Rogers Jr. It was 5 lines, it didn't pay much, and nobody else showed up, so I got the part, said Kirk. The performance is seen by an agent from the Gertz agency who signed Kirk and succeeded in casting him in an episode of TV Reader's Digest, which was a series sponsored by the popular magazine. Now, the episode was called The Last of the Old-Time Shooting Sheriffs and was directed by William Bodine. Kirk's brother didn't keep on with acting. He actually went on to become, of all things, a dentist. Now, Kirk began to work steadily in television throughout 1956 and 57, including video episodes of Lux Video Theater, Frontier, Big Town, Crossroads, Gunsmoke, Letter to Loretta, where he did 2 episodes, and Matinee Theater, where he did a version of The Others, which was a version of The Turn the Screw. Now, according to Diabolique magazine, Kirk was in heavy demand as an actor almost immediately, mainly because he had all-American looks, very handsome young man, very genial, and he seemed to be a type of person that had head on his shoulders. Now, watching his early performances, easy to see why. He was wide-eyed, gangly, keen, and immensely likable, the very picture of Eisenhower-era American youth. Unaffected and natural, surprisingly non-annoying, extremely easy to cast as someone's kid brother or son or neighbor. Mickey Dolenz comes to mind for talent. I'm surprised that Tommy Kirk didn't have a bigger recognition factor back in the day. He was very big in Canada, but like in the States, he seemed to be, wasn't as big as Kurt Russell, but kind of middle of the road. Now, he also acted with Angie Dickinson in a short feature called Down Liberty Road, and it was a short commercial travelogue produced by Greyhound Lines to promote their Scene Cruiser buses. Now, in April '56, he got his big break in the Hardy Boys. He auditioned for the part of Joe Hardy for the Mickey Mouse Club serial, The Hardy Boys, The Mystery of the Applegate Treasure. He was successful and was selected to co-star with Tim Considine. The show was filmed in June and early July '56 and broadcast in October at the start of the show's 2nd season. The show and Kirk's performance were extremely well received and led to a long association between the actor and the studio. And now in August '56, Disney hired Kirk and former Musketeer Junie Harriet to attend both the Republican and Democratic presidential nominating conventions for newsreel specials that later appeared on the show. Kirk also hosted short travelogues for the serial segment of the show's 2nd season. He did the voiceover narration for the Eagle Hunters and then co-hosted 2 more travelogues with Annette Funicello. Tommy also did voice dubbing work for the Danish-made film Vetterhavslengi, shown in the Mickey Mouse Club as the serial Boys of the Western Sea. Around this time, it was announced Kirk would appear as young Davy Crockett, but this does not seem to have happened. There was quite a bit of rumors that the Davy Crockett would either be a cartoon or like the Young David Clark, a cartoon or a serial. But again, he was very busy, and a lot of jobs were coming in. Now, Kirk's career received its biggest break yet when in January '57, Disney cast him as Travis Coast in Old Yeller, an adventure story about a boy and his heroic dog. Kirk had the lead role in the film, which was enormously successful, and he became Disney's first choice whenever they needed someone to play an all-American teenager. Kevin Corcoran played his younger brother, and the two of them would often be teamed together as brothers. Both Kirk and Corcoran were announced for the cast of Rainbow Road to Oz, a feature film based on the stories of L. Frank Baum, but his film was never produced. Now, Kirk appeared in another Hardy Boys Brothers installment, the original story, The Mystery of Ghost Farm, September 13 to December 20th, '57. Now, he continued to guest star in TV series such as The O. Henry Playhouse, The Californians, Matinee Theater, and Playhouse 90. He also provided the voice, along with Sandra Dee, for the U.S. version of a Soviet animated feature, The Snow Queen. Now, he graduated to what he called older roles, or older teenager roles. He was cast in The Shaggy Dog in 1959, a comedy about a boy inventor who, under the influence of a magic ring, is repeatedly transformed in an old English sheepdog. This team with Coquelin and two other Disney stars he would regularly work with, Fred McMurray and Annette Funicello. According to Diabolique, much of the credit went to McMurray. A lot of the credit should have gone to Kirk, whose easy-going boy-next-door charm made him the ideal American teen. Now, from there, he went back to TV, appearing in The Millionaire and Bachelor Father. Now, Shaggy Dog turned out to be a massive hit, bigger than Old Yeller, which is saying a lot. Old Yeller was, especially the denouement scene in Old Yeller has been, I don't want to give it too much away, but it's a classic of the genre. And Disney soon contacted Kirk, offering another long-term contract in a role as middle son Ernst Robinson in another adventure film, Swiss Family Robinson, starring John Mills, Dorothy McGuire, Janet Monroe, and Coquelin. This was another box office hit, and it remained Kirk's favorite movie. When he returned from filming in the West Indies, the studio signed him to 2 more movies. In '59, Film Daily called Kirk one of the 5 male juveniles of the year, which included Tim Considine, Ricky Nelson, Eddie Hodges, and of course James MacArthur, who was in Swiss Family Robinson, later in the Y50 shows. In '59, he and a friend were also killed in a car crash in Arizona. The car was totally demolished, but we didn't get a scratch, he said later. How do you explain that? Now, Kirk followed this movie up with support roles in a fantasy comedy starring Frank McMurray, The Absent-Minded Professor in 1961, which was another huge hit. Now, Disney sent Kirk to England along with Monroe and Funicello for The Horse Masters, '61, a youth-oriented horse-riding film, which was made for U.S. television but screened theatrically in some international markets. Kirk later guested on Angel, and for Disney played a supporting role of Grumio in the fairy tale fantasy Babes in Toyland, supporting Funicello, Ray Bolger, Ed Wynn, and Tommy Sands. Kirk later described his film as a sort of a clunker, but it has a few cute moments. It's an oddity. I like that movie, actually. And Ed Wynn was very good in it. It was a box office disappointment, but became a hit in TV and later in the video version. So too was Mind Boom Pilot, a satirical comedy for Disney where Kirk played the younger brother of Tom Tron. Diabolique said both these films were box office disappointments, and it would have been better had Kirk been given more to do, or come to think of it, playing the male lead instead of Tommy Sands and Tom Tryon. Male actors who excel in light comedy were exceedingly rare, that is now, as Disney was coming to appreciate. Now, Kirk did a family comedy with Murray called Bon Voyage, with other family members played by Jane Wyman, Deborah Wally, and Coquelin. McMurray once reportedly gave Kirk the biggest dressing down in my life during the filming, one that Kirk says he deserves. Now, McMurray was being the strong, what he called male role model for him. He felt felt like he wasn't doing enough to keep the role strong. And he allegedly had trouble with Jane Wyman, who, like McMurray, he claimed she was very mean to me. She went out of her way to be shitty, but she was a total bitch, and I think she was homophobic. Now, don't want to get heavy into this right here, but it was a known fact amongst Hollywood that Tommy was gay, and he was getting a lot of flack because in the early 1960s it was getting harder because of Confidential magazine previously in different situations to hide the fact you were gay because people were out to get you. Now, Kirk did have strong relationships with the other actors he worked with. Tommy played my brother in a lot of films and put up with a lot of things that he did to him over the years. Coquelin says in a commentary in the DVD release of Old Yeller, "He must be a great person not to hate me." Tim Considine calls Kirk a monster talent. Now, Kirk starred with Funicello in another overseas shot story which screened in the U.S. on TV, but was released in some countries theatrically. Escapade in Florence. Newspaper columns occasionally link Kirk and Funicello names romantically, and Kirk always spoke highly of her. Now, in July '62, Disney announced that he would make The Happiest American with Kirk, but it appears to have not been made. Instead, he did a sequel to Absent-Minded Professor called Son of Flubber, his last film with McMurray. Now, Kirk guest starred on an episode of Mr. Novak, and it was also given the lead in Disney's Savage Sam, a follow-up to Old Yeller, which reunited him with Coquelin, and co-starred Brian Keith. It was not as well received as Old Yeller, and he also guested in an episode of the Alfred Hitchcock Hour, 10 Minutes from Now. So we're into 1964, so we're thinking, hey, he's holding on, there's going to be some good parts down the road, kind of like Sal Mineo. Now, Disney then cast Kirk as a scrambled egghead, student inventor Merlin Jones in the Misadventures of Merlin Jones, opposite again Funicello. The film was directed by Robert Stevenson, who made the bulk of Disney's comedies. It became an unexpected box office sensation and one of the biggest hits of the year. Kirk says he only met Walt Disney outside the studio one time at a party. Kirk says Disney called him his good luck charm. Now, according to published reports, him and Kurt Russell were high on his what he called box office radar. He knew he could put Kurt Russell in certain things and Tommy Kirk and Annette Funicello to get the audience. And by 1964, even though it was the Beatles era, he was still getting, box office. Now, emotionally, he wasn't, felt he wasn't being honest with himself and those around him. Kirk said he knew he was gay from an early age. He said, "I consider my teenage years of being desperately unhappy. I knew I was gay, but I had no outlet for my feelings. It was very hard to meet people, and at that time, there was no good place to go to socialize. It wasn't until the early 60s that I began to hear of places where gays congregated. The lifestyle was not recognized, and it was very, very lonely. Oh, I had some brief, very passionate encounters as a teenager. I had some affairs, but they were always stolen back alley kind of things. They were desperate and miserable. When I was 17 or 18, I finally admitted to myself that I wasn't going to change. I don't know what the consequences would be, but I had the definite feeling that I was going to wreck my Disney career and maybe my whole acting career. It was all going to come to an end." And boy, did it come to an end. He pretty well disappeared. This is what happened. He was on the top, pretty well top echelon for Disney, and this happened. Allegedly, while filming The Misadventures of Merlin Jones in '63, he started seeing a 15-year-old boy who had met at a local swimming pool in Burbank. The boy's mother discovered the affair and informed Disney, who elected not to renew Kirk's contract. At the time, Kirk was 21. Now, in 2021, this would be considered close to statutory rape. Now, Walt Disney personally fired Kirk. Kirk describes the situation himself. Even more than MGM, Disney was the most conservative studio in town. The studio executives were beginning to suspect my homosexuality. Certain people were growing less and less friendly. In 1963, Disney let me go, but Walt asked me to return for the final Merlin Jones movie, The Monkey's Uncle, because the Jones film had been moneymakers for the studio. Now, the news of Kirk's termination from Disney was not made public, and Kirk soon found himself working at AIP, or American International Pictures, who were looking for a leading man to co-star with Funicello in a musical they were preparing, The Maid and the Martian. Kirk was cast as a Martian who arrives on Earth and falls in with a bunch of partying teenagers. The movie was later retitled Pajama Party and was a box office hit. So AIP signed him to start a follow-up, How to Stuff a Wild Bikini. In the meantime, The Misadventures of Merlin Jones has become an unexpected smash hit, earning, get this, $4 million in rentals in North America, and Disney invited him and Funicello back to make the sequel to Monkey's Uncle. He was also cast but did not star in the John Wayne film, The Sons of Katie Elder, as well as a beach party movie, Beach Ball. Now, another strike against his career. On Christmas Eve '64, he was arrested for suspicion of possession of marijuana at a house in Hollywood. The DA's office subsequently refused to file a complaint against him on the marijuana charge. The city attorney's office filed an illegal drugs charge because officers found a vial of barbiturates in his car. This charge was dismissed by a judge in early January, where Kirk's attorney established that the barbiturates had been prescribed by the physician. However, the damage to Kirk's career had been done. He was replaced on How to Stuff a Wild Bikini by Dwayne Hickman, on The Sons of Katie Elder by Michael Anderson Jr., and on Beach Ball by Ed Kooky Burns. Now, he said at the time, the town is full of right-wingers, the world is full of right-wingers, intolerant, cruel, set of sons of bitches. But he also said later that he richly deserved to be fired from the studios because of my irresponsibility. A person on drugs is not fit for work. Now, for the moment, Kirk could still get work. He appeared in The Village of the Giants for director Burt Gordon, along Beau Bridges and Ron Howard. Kirk later described it as a kind of a crazy movie, but the production values are pretty good and it sort of holds together. I could have not done without the Dancing Ducks, though. In September '65, Kirk made a beach party crime film for Executive Pictures Corp., Catalina Caper, which was released in '67. Now, The Monkey's Uncle came out in July '65 and was almost as successful as Merlin Jones. AIP then cast him in The Ghost in the Invisible Bikini with Deborah Wally, and soon after, he and Wally were put in It's a Bikini World, filmed in late '65 under the direction of Stephanie Rothman, not released until 1967. Now, also for AIP, he appeared in a TV special, The Wild Weird World of Dr. Goldfoot, made to promote Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine, which aired in November '65. In December, he announced he would make 3 more films for exclusive, starting with Teacher Teacher alongside Bob Denver and Don Wells, but the film would not be made. Larry Buchanan, according to published reports, the release of Bikini World and Catalina Caper was held up for a number of months, and Ghost in Invisible Bikini was a box office failure, leading the end of the beach movie cycle. Kirk's career was losing momentum. Kirk said after he was fired from Disney, I did some of the worst movies ever made and got involved with a manager who said it didn't matter what you did as long as you kept working. He put me in every piece of shit that anybody offered. I did a series of terrible things, but it was only to get the money. Kirk did not criticize the AIP films, which describe as cute, lightweight, screwball comedies, but their production values are high. I'm not ashamed of those, but I did some other movies that you wouldn't believe. My manager said, just take it, and whatever it is, just take it, or they'll forget you. Among those were Catalina Caper and It's a Bikini World. Kirk also disliked the comedy made for Jack Harris, Unkissed Bride, and 2 films he made for Texan director Larry Buchanan, Mars Needs Women, which were he co-starred with Batgirl Yvonne Craig, and It's Alive. Now, in October '66, Kirk and a lot of people predicted he was going to do. He tried out a car racing film, Track of Thunder, but his personal problems were beginning to affect his career. I was drinking, taking pills, and smoking grass. In fact, it was pretty wild. I came into a whole lot of money, but I threw a lot of parties and spent it all. I wound up completely broke. I had no self-discipline and almost died of a drug overdose a couple of times. It's a miracle that I was still around. All of that didn't help the situation. Nobody would touch me. I was considered box office poison. Kirk says by the time of Track of Thunder, he was so into drugs, I was about half awake in that film. I just sort of walked through it and took the money. Kirk said he reached bottom in 1970 when he did 2 movies that were non-Screen Actors Guild, Ride the Hot Wind and Blood of Ghastly Horror, causing Kirk to almost lose his SAG card. Finally said, to hell with the whole thing, to hell with show business. I'm going to make a new life for myself, and I got off drugs. Completely kicked all that stuff. Kirk publicly came out as gay in the '73 interview with Marvin Jones. At the time, he was studying acting at Lee Strasberg Theater and Film Institute while working as a busboy in an LA restaurant. He was in Deadline, a '73 episode of The Streets of San Francisco, and a feature, My Name is Legend, in 1975. Now, Kirk said he got over his drug addiction and gave up acting in the mid-1970s. He worked as a waiter and chauffeur before going into the carpet cleaning business in the San Fernando Valley of LA, an operation which he ran for 20 years. In 1990, Kirk said he was poor, adding that, I made a lot of money and spent it all. I wasn't a boy next door anymore. I could pretend to be for a few hours a day in front of the camera, but I couldn't live it. I'm human. I'm not Francis Assisi. Now, by 1990, he was going into script writing. He was working on a script about Abraham Lincoln, but it wasn't published. He continued to act occasionally, including an R-rated spoof, Attack of the 60-Foot Centerfold. Now, by 2006, he had more than 30 feature film roles to his credit. He also enjoyed writing occasionally and occasionally appearing at retro film conventions. Now, in 2006 as well, he was inducted as a Disney legend along his former co-stars Tim Constantine and Kevin Corcoran. His other repeat co-stars, Annette Funicello and Frank McMurray, had already been inducted in 92 and 87 respectively. Also in 2006, the first of Kirk's Hardy Boys Secret Heroes was issued on DVD in the fifth wave of the Walt Disney Treasures series. So just to some of the major roles, and there was quite a few. Again, Old Yeller, the Snow Queen, Shaggy Dog, Swiss Family Robinson, Absent-Minded Professor, Babes in Toyland, The Horse Masters, Son of Flubber, The Misadventures of Merlin Jones, Pajama Party, Village of the Giants, The Ghost and Invisible Bikini, Track of Thunder, if you can find it, it's quite good actually. Mars Needs a Woman, which was a TV movie. It's Alive, playing Wayne Thomas, not the goalie. Ride to Hot Wind, and again, interesting movie as well, something called The Education of a Vampire. I heard it's a quite interesting watch. Now, television credits again: TV Reader's Digest, Frontier, Letter to Loretta, Big Town, Crossroads, Gunsmoke, The Mickey Mouse Club, Matinee Theater, The Mickey Mouse Club, a couple of voiceovers, Matinee Theater, The Mystery of Ghost Fair and Mickey Mouse Club, Californians, Playhouse 90, The Millionaire, Bachelor Father, Angel, not the later series, Mr. Novak Shindig, and The Streets of San Francisco. Now, I would consider Tommy Kirk probably as much of an important factor in that Disney era. He's a top 10 Disney youth star without question. But what he said before about being clean cut but not annoying, I think that sums it up. He was a good actor, and it'd be interesting to see if he would have kept it all the roles. But you look at a Y50, you look at Mission Impossible, you look at the shows going into the 70s and 80s, he would have been good on an episodic, even a soap. I think he's a very underrated actor, and when he passed away at 79, I kept on saying to myself, well, did he really do all those roles? Was he that good? Like I said, when Kurt Russell was in all those late 60s, early 70s Disney movies, Kirk could have done that movies, because Kirk would have transferred quite well into that genre, because I guess he was doing pages and pages of script just like a knife through butter. And like I said, sure, I mean, being gay at the time, it was a lot of stress on him, but he had to be himself. And I think from what I've heard over the years from different published reports, he lived the life he wanted to live. He got away from his addictions. He seemed to be living a better life, and that's what you want for anybody. If he was happy with what his choices were as an actor and getting away from it, all the power to him. But to me, again, Tommy Kirk, we owe him a big thank you for being as talented as he was. And the Disney movies were manufactured, cotton candy, sometimes what do you call it, clean cut stuff, but there was an actor there. He deserves our respect. You can't be in all those movies. And Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello would do movies together, and they were okay, but for some reason I watched Annette and Tommy together. They had good chemistry. It was a very natural thing. And I always thought with a Tommy Kirk comedy, do like kind of a sports one, like a baseball plot where basically you could see, we can manipulate the ball, like sort of like the Absent-Minded Professor, but just basically on a baseball plot involving, California-based baseball players. The mind boggles. And back in the day, like I said, every Sunday we sat down and we're watching Tommy Kirk repeats well into the 1970s. And like the Hardy Boys shows were quite good. I mean, it's good to be talented. Again, Bad luck sometimes. So again, Tommy Kirk, rest in peace, age of 79. All these fans and his extended family, we wish you prayers, our condolences. If you like what we're doing here, we're a vintage movie podcast. Let us know with a like, comment, or subscribe. And as we like to say, I'm here to celebrate on this podcast when people pass away the great accomplishments he did. And Tommy Kirk was a very, very strong actor for Disney for many years. He deserves our respect. Have a good day. Bye.